Welcome one and all to what is officially, numerically, the umpteenth edition of the Echo Chamberlain livestream. My first guest, in a gesture of civic goodwill, has kindly volunteered as a county poll worker for the upcoming election. Here to tell us whether he has been issued with bear spray, pepper spray, or reserve supplies of mace, whether he has been outfitted with standard issue Kevlar body armor, or a more heavy-duty ballistic vest, if he has a shrill enough distress whistle in case of abduction, been sufficiently drilled in coordinated escape exercises, and has ready access to psychological support services, as well as to up-to-date insurance paperwork, is Mr. Greg. Owen, good morning.
Good evening, sir. I think you think too highly of us poll workers. I was planning on bringing a book, maybe, possibly an energy drink to stay awake, because I think most of us just don't care anymore. It's all crazy, and we're all checking out.
All right. Well, let's hope that things aren't too much carnage. This is our first time without the old despot.
I know.
Yeah. Well, he's out on assignment, as it were, and he's got things of more consequence to worry about.
Do you want me to be a little more like cranky, like try to be a little angrier to sort of fill the void a little, or?
If you could, yeah, if you could oscillate between those two, that would be good.
All right, I'll work on it. See if I can muster up the energy. I'm not sure how good it'll be, but we'll try.
All right. So yeah, is this officially our first anniversary? Is that I think it's paper, right? In the official thing.
Oh, I did get you a gift, and it is shipping is slow at the moment. It's well because of our longshoreman thing. So it is on the way. Yeah, I didn't forget.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all those snarled up, production lines. That's still the issue. But I appreciate the sentiment. Now let's see, where's okay. So well, my next guest is uniquely suited to the upcoming political ordeal, being both a martial artist and a citizen of New Jersey, where incitements to violence, altercations, escalating macho posturing, and disorderly conduct are the medium of day-to-day existence. Here is proof that the Electoral College is nothing compared to the School of Hard Knocks, is DarkHour. What's up?
I got to go with the New Jersey thing. No, not much. I just barely got in on the entry of this. So I was like, oh, shit, I better jump on my computer.
Well, I was just saying before that we had a great Terminator stream, breaking that down the other day. So everyone should go check that out.
Yeah, it's been put on the repost channel. I can I'm sure one of the one of your mods or whatever probably has that link. But yeah, this is actually our third stream in 4 days together. This is I think people are going to start talking pretty soon.
Yeah, that's right. God damn. And we're going to be talking about a lot of the exact same things.
It's fine. I don't mind.
Well, my next guest is an intricate and often confusing amalgam of pseudonyms and nomenclature, known as Nyat or Niat, and occasionally Master Niat, who is also known under the alias or moniker of Film Comics Explained, and will even, during streams in which he is displayed as Niat, enter comments in the chat as Film Comics Explained, without it being clear to his chat interlocutors or fellow panelists. Here to explain himself, or themselves, is Nyat, IE and AKA Film Comics Explained.
Howdy, fellas. The only explanation I have for you, Echo, is that I'm a bit of an enigma. We'll just leave it at that.
All right. Being enigmatic and describing yourself as an enigma. That's great. So what's things like in Oz right now? Is it nice and what's the temperature culturally?
It's heating up. We're about to approach summer, and everything's looking great, and just back into the swing of things. I was gallivanting around the world for a couple of weeks. Went to the US and Japan and came back 2 weeks ago, and just getting back into the grind.
Mm-hmm. Halloween in Australia and New Zealand sucks because the clocks have gone around. So now it's like sunny till about 8 p.m. So rather than having it, dark and nighttime and really spooky with a cool atmosphere and fun, it's like blazing hot sunshine while kids are wandering around as princesses and goblins. So it completely misses the point and looks totally ridiculous. Is that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't really celebrate Halloween in the same way that a lot of other countries do. In fact, I do have an image I've sent to your Twitter from an Australian, something they posted on their wall. Maybe you can bring that up. But it just goes to show the attitude that we have towards Halloween.
Yeah, we do everything half-assed. We got half-assed Guy Fawkes. We even got what's that American sale they have? Something October. I can't remember what it is.
You don't even blow shit up, do you?
No, we don't do any of that.
The October. Wait, October what?
What is it? Something like what's that super gigantic sale where everyone bursts into the mall and tramples over each other?
Oh, it's you're talking about Black Friday. That's
Friday,
the day after our Thanksgiving. Yeah,
right after
so
we get thanks.
Yeah, we've taken on that now, even though it's got no cultural relation to us whatsoever. So it's weird, very pointless.
That's just stores pushing their commercialism worldwide. That's all that is.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my next guest. It's Swappers, isn't it?
Hello. How is everybody?
I think we're pretty good. It's great to finally have some Brits on the channel because we've been aching to connect with our British friends, but the time differences has made it impossible up till now. But now,
it pleases me to soothe your swelling ache that you must have in various areas of your body. So, pleasure to be here.
Okay, great. What's the cultural temperature in Old Blighty these days?
Bearable. I went out for a run earlier on this afternoon, and it wasn't cold enough to force my nipples forth enough to cut glass, but it was moderate enough to still break out a sweat and need to wipe myself down afterwards. You're loving this, aren't you? A very descriptive account of my situation.
Can't get enough.
Yeah, so it's okay, but you'll have to ask the droid. He's further down south than me, so he's obviously in better climes.
All right, well, let's get to the man himself. My last guest has been exploited and subjected to spiritless yet frenetic gyrations and degrading sessions of sleazily morbid roleplay at the behest of Uncle Owen, more than a participant at a P. Diddy freak-off party. Recorded in intrusive and non-consensual videotape by Aunt Beru, and coerced into incessant episodes of Jawa Bukkake at Uncle Owen's ribald yet domineering insistence, and even entered upon one or two rather salacious quickies with salacious crumb. Despite all these exertions and associated trauma, thank the Maker, he is here with us today. He is Thrrepio.
How can I possibly come back from such an awesome introduction? Thank you very much, Echo.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. I think you're the YouTube ecosystem's most underrated participant. So no offense, swappers, but Z's got a bit of magic to him.
Oh,
yes,
thank you
I have
very
to agree.
much.
I just realized that SwapShop is competing with me on the shirt.
Would I ever do that? Seriously.
Well, Z, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I have actually covertly accessed some of your naughtier sub-files.
Oh, no.
I'm going to have to publicly put them out there. So these are your private musings that I'm going to put out there in the public domain. So I hope that you don't mind.
While encountering this particular robot model, I can attest to the prevailing rumors that he has in fact quite willingly submitted to the attentions of one too many probe droids, hence his rear power socket being rather loose and smeared with leaking hydraulic fluid after a fair few panel beatings. Still, I will confess to more than a few power fluctuations at the memory of a certain hush-hush encounter during an idle afternoon involving nipple clamps, some battery cables, and a toaster.
Right, so what have you got to say for yourself, Steve?
I was young and impressionable.
Mm.
There may have been drugs involved.
All right. Well, let's roll the news then. All right. Well, I thought I'd start off with this, which is I just wanted to show you the difference between one Joker and another Joker. So the top line is the performance at the box office of the original The Joker from 2019. and I
just
was just
Joker?
fascinated. Yeah,
Just
and
Joker,
then
not
Joker
Budget.
2. Yeah, Joker 2. Perhaps not doing as well as they perhaps intended at the box office there. So that's that's something of a deficit.
You
Oof.
said one Joker versus another Joker for a second. I thought we were looking at the US election polls, but carry on.
No, they're apparently much closer than that. You guys ever have a video look like that green line and it just ruins your fucking day?
Oh yeah, actually, my most recent one, my Venom one, it looks pretty much exactly like that on the on all counts. So it's...
Damn. Well, I'm really happy about my latest video because it's got nothing to do with film and usual entertainment, but it's going gangbusters. So I don't know what happened, but it worked. This is even worse. You might remember, Greg, when we showed what was it, Captain Marvel versus the Marvels, and it was almost exactly the same in terms of performance. Did anyone see Joker Folie à Deux? Because I have to confess, I never actually went to the cinema and watched it.
Not
Yeah.
me.
No.
I did, unfortunately. I had to cover it on the channel, and
Right.
yeah,
Excruciating.
it was awful.
What was the
Yeah.
feeling like in the cinema?
I felt like I was watching a Diddy Freakoff video, like one scene in particular. And I'm not surprised about the performance here. As you can see, like Joker in its opening day made more than Joker Folie à Deux did in its opening weekend, and you know it hasn't really grown since then. It's just flatlined, and it's just an awful movie. It's I feel like the director just hated the fans, hated the character of the Joker, and almost was forced to do a sequel and wanted to ensure that it didn't succeed, so he didn't have to be forced to make another one. Like it was just, it was painful.
Has it made you retroactively question the singularity and class of the first film? Like you gave it the benefit of the doubt on a bunch of things, and now you no longer give it the benefit of the doubt because there was all these kind of insidiousness underneath there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first film was a surprise hit. I was fortunate enough to go see it at the Venice Film Festival 2 months before it was released worldwide, and it was a massive hit. It won a few awards and had like a 15-minute standing ovation. Not that that really means anything these days. Every film gets a standing ovation there, but the atmosphere was electric. It was fantastic. Joaquin Phoenix turned in a beautiful performance. Hilda Guadendorfer did phenomenal score, and none of that carried on to the second film.
So you actually were in Venice, and you took a Vaporetto to the Rialto. Is that right?
I did, yeah.
Wow,
Absolutely.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Damn. Yeah. Well, that's the
stuff. Freaking jet setter, and I'm in cornfield country. It's making me feel bad about my life.
Flyover country. Well, yeah. So another Star Wars shakeup. This is bizarre to me. It's like I see a lot of media saying, everyone hold their horses. This isn't a bad thing. This is just typical Hollywood behavior. But no, Stephen Knight, aka of fame from Peaky Blinders, great show. He'd been working on this since for about a year. So he'd been working on various scripts and treatments and trying to put things together. And after a year, they finally decided to part ways. So essentially, they're starting from scratch with new treatments, bearing in mind that the Lindelof production was intended to be already underway by now before they jettisoned that. And this is going to be, I think, 2 years down the track from that timeline. So they're jettisoning the one guy who I thought might actually be able to do something good with Star Wars. And now they've hurled him out of the mix. And they're saying, oh, he's got all these other projects. He's a very busy man and whatever. But no, it's insane. So I'm kind of worried about this now.
You don't got to worry. I mean, like this same thing happened. I mean, you remember with Blade, the same thing happened. And that's shit. I think that's a bad example. No, I'll come back to it though. This is gonna be fine. Don't worry about this.
I
don't keep saying Blade is going to happen now.
I will keep saying that they will make sure that this movie happens. Kathleen Kennedy will not let this film die. If she has to direct it herself, she will make sure that this happens.
That's quite what it actually comes down to. Yeah.
Everything she's done up to this point with Star Wars, and I mean Lucasfilm in general, because they kind of tried to do it with Indiana Jones as well, hinges on the Rey movie existing. It doesn't matter if we say it's bad, because they'll just be like, it's the same. It'll be the same thing. Oh, they're just toxic fans. Everything that she has worked towards is culminating in this movie coming out.
This
I
is
agree
the
with
film,
DarkHour.
isn't it? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. This is the
No, go
film
ahead.
that she randomly, Kathleen Kennedy, randomly mentioned to Bob Iger that she wanted to produce. I think it's the same project with absolutely no backing whatsoever. It was just like an idea at the time, like a whimsy. And Bob Iger, I think it was just to kind of put rumors out there to say, oh, well, it's kind of already in production, so we might as well go ahead and finish it, right, Bob? And I think that was like a couple of years ago. So I guess this is the sort of the culmination of all that crap. And not JJ Abrams, Lindelof was brought on board to do it, and then we know the story there. And then obviously now we've got the new guy who's now flaked off, and it's just going to keep doing this now until they just settle on somebody and just say, just get a film out, just do anything, just get a film out, because like you say, Kennedy is not going to let this go no matter what.
Yeah, it's become psychological for her. They might even bring in J.J. Abrams again.
Disney, Star Wars, and Disney Marvel both have a history of losing directors, writers, and even actors partway through production. So it looks like that when they promised that they were going to focus on quality rather than quantity, I'm not seeing that here. I'm just seeing their old behaviors coming to head again.
Yeah, to your point, Z, when it comes to Disney, Marvel, and Disney Star Wars, the reason why they have so many writers and directors drop off is their framework for production is quite restrictive. You don't have much creative control of your own project. You sort of have to work within the guidelines that they set. So it can be quite suffocating for a filmmaker to work in that condition. I think this is probably what's happened with Stephen Knight. At the same time, he is working on a few things. I think he's launching a studio as well, so I can understand why he'd want to cut ties.
Well, Z, speaking of incorrigible old behaviors, I've actually accessed another of your naughty sub-files. So
oh no, not another one.
Yeah, so
Z, you need better
the 11
security.
model, well, being on the receiving end of his hard drive, I shan't trouble you with the details of his running amok just short of light speed and pulverizing my processor in a turbo lift, subjecting me to a new definition of pain and suffering for what felt like 1,000 years. Though in retrospect, I will confess the little power quickie behind a tavern wasn't entirely without its charms.
Z, come on, what's going on here?
I'm very sorry, but you know that sensation that you saw R2 get when he plugged his data cable into a power converter on Bespin? You kind of got all that tingly feeling. All that, it does that to you, and it really makes you kind of settle down for the evening and get into a relaxed position.
Nice. Well, that's the state of Star Wars. Here's a little whimsical thing that I wanted to run by you guys. Who, in your view, and it doesn't have to be on the screen here, but who, in your view, had the greatest on-screen transformation from actor to unrecognizable and delivered an extraordinary performance? So obviously you've got the Penguin here, but you've also got John Hurt's iconic 1980 Elephant Man performance, where he was unrecognizable, but through the dense makeup managed to project an immense amount of pathos and humanity, and was quite enthralling to watch. And then you got Christian Bale, who utterly transformed into Dick Cheney, from the voice, the mannerisms, the fat suit, and all the facial prosthetics and everything. So who, in your view, it could be on the screen, it could be someone else you've always thought of, is the greatest transformation to almost unrecognizable, and yet is able to exude real character and acting chops through those dense layers? I'd probably still go with John Hurt. He's still my guy, I think. With the slurping sounds and the lurching movements and the sensitivity and the self-consciousness, I think he delivered an outstanding performance.
I think of these three for
agree.
sure. I'd have to like really sit down and think about this for a while.
I
But
do.
of these three, I think he's definitely.
Robert Downey Jr., Tropic Thunder.
That's a great one too.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
We got an Oscar.
yeah, I
for
should
that.
have put him on the screen.
Well,
He's
that
more
one's
a
especially
comedic. Yeah, that's more a comedic performance though. Where but you're right, Z. That certainly does count.
But that one's especially great because it's not only is it Robert Downey Jr. had to play an Australian who then transformed into a black guy.
Yeah.
So there's layers to that. That's like Inception levels of changing who you are.
there's one scene in that film which I think about all the time, where he's got Jack Black on the back of a mule, and they're trying to get their way into the village with all the drugs, and the little kid stops them. And so Robert Downey Jr. is dressed as a peasant. So he's Robert Downey Jr., the actor, playing a sociopathic Australian actor, playing an African-American guy, playing a Vietnamese peasant trying to get into a village. That's incredible.
And the best part about it is he keeps all the accents. He somehow gets all of the accents into every line. It's amazing. That's one of the best performances ever. It's very underrated.
You couldn't make that movie today. As for these options, I think that Christian Bale and Colin Farrell's Penguin are sort of on par, although Colin Farrell does play a bit more of a caricature, whereas Bale's Dick Cheney is a bit more reserved, a bit more accurate. But one person that's probably missing from this list is Gary Oldman. He's one of the most transformative actors of the past few decades. Everything he does, he just immerses himself into the role.
I'm pulling up a list of other actors who had really one that's here. Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill.
Yeah,
that was another great one.
Daniel Day-Lewis was on that list.
What role for Daniel Day-Lewis? Oh, in By Left Foot, perhaps.
Lincoln, I think he was, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis in anything he's ever been in, because make sure that.
Sidera17 in the chat said Charlize Theron in Monster, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, Eddie Murphy in Coming to America as the white Jewish guy. That's a good one.
It's probably up there, yeah.
I really like Tim Curry in as Darkness in that 80s movie.
Legend,
yeah.
That was pretty
as
good.
Satan, presumably, yeah.
And more recently, Brendan Fraser in The Whale.
Oh yeah, that'd be up there as well. Did he win the Oscar for that? He did, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
Here's one that I always forget. Whoever's seen Hook, the movie Hook? There's the one pirate who gets thrown in the treasure chest with the scorpions, and it's clearly a man played by Glenn Close. You'd never guess. Yeah, so that's a great one. So there's actually quite a few good ones here on this list.
Are the Wayans brothers on there for white chicks?
Yeah.
Yes, they were. I was going to bring that up, but I skipped off to the next one.
I still remember the tagline for the poster for that film, where it said "Look close," and then in tiny script it said "Not that close," because they're dressed up as chicks. That was quite good. I've sort of dropped off the radar with Penguin. Is it still going? Because I sort of enjoyed it, and then I think Z, you kind of provoked and coerced me into essentially wanting to stick with it. I can never quite get there. Was it getting better?
It is. It's kind of kicked up a gear over the recent weeks, where we've seen Sophia Gigante's villain arc take place, and she's turning into quite the formidable opponent for this season. She's really good at what she does. Enjoying it. Absolutely enjoying it.
I haven't seen any episodes of Penguin at all. I'm tempted to watch it thanks to Z's laud it, but I have seen the Pingu, which is the parody of the Penguin with starring the titular plasticine character, and I was really impressed. So if the Penguin's as good as that, then I think I'm in for a treat.
I had a real. Oh, go ahead, Z.
Yeah, it's like The Sopranos in Gotham. Give it a go.
I had a real American moment on Twitter with the Penguin. I was catching up on episodes, and they mentioned like in DC's history, Gotham is in New Jersey. It's basically where Atlantic City's supposed to be, and they rarely mention that. It's only every so often in the comics and stuff. But they mentioned the town of Robbinsville in this, where they're moving all their stuff. I was like, oh, that's a real town. So I tweeted it. I went to go tweet, and then they mentioned Lake Como. And there's a town called Lake Como in New Jersey. And then later in the episode, I realized they're talking about Lake Como, Italy, and I was like, "Hey, sorry, I'm really American and don't know that there's places outside of here."
Z, having seen the Penguin, I'm sure you've seen the Batman as well. Would you agree that the Penguin is a better show than the Batman is a film?
Absolutely. I really didn't like that first film. I thought the riddles on there were quite obvious. As a detective, Batman was completely useless. And in the end, he didn't even stop the Riddler. So quite ineffective as a superhero, as it were. But the Penguin really surprised me.
I still remember that stupid scene in the Batman, where it comes down to some random cop guy who makes some vague allusion about machinery or technology to pull up carpet and look at underlay, and that provides the clue towards the end. Very stupid.
Well, the film's broken essentially because at the start, Batman receives all the photos that were taken by the Riddler, and it's taken from outside his apartment. So if Batman was a detective, he would have been able to find exactly where he was at the very beginning of the film. But he's quite incompetent.
Yeah, if some autistic teenager on Kiwi farms can find a street address in half an hour, I'm sure they could have used him for that.
The riddles that Jim Carrey Riddler gave in Batman Forever were better riddles because they were at least fun to like try and figure out what they meant.
Here's some deep Brown Alliance lore here from common people about Mickey Geek's pronunciation of penguin. Z, I've with the show, I'm struggling a little bit with the idea of gritty realism on the one hand and rogues gallery elements on the other, and it's kind of in this liminal space in between where I can't quite settle. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, it may very well be, but they're not using any of the fantastical villains from the Batman universe so far. It's all been like a gangster based with the Falcone family, but there have been elements creeping in. You met one of the supervillains, Magpie, in jail. Where she gets off quite quickly. It was nice to see that, but I don't think you're going to be seeing anything like Killer Croc or Clayface or
Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
They're definitely pulling from the golden age characters and some of the early Silver Age. They're really the more fantastical stuff came later, Bronze and Bronze Age comics, which was in the like 80s. That's when they really ramped up the powers and stuff of even then they still had detective comics, the more detective oriented stuff.
Well, on a similar note, I wanted to also get your opinions on which actor came from the least likely role to then become an iconic, menacing and brilliant role. So if you had Ricardo Montalban in The Wrath of Khan, who had just come from filming Fantasy Island, or Bryan Cranston, who was known as the goofy dad on Malcolm in the Middle, before then, a year later, becoming this iconic, dark, menacing character. Or Heath Ledger, who a year before had come from 10 Things I Hate About You, which was a goofy, stupid high school comedy, to then becoming the iconic Joker. So who made the most incredible leap from a benign character to an iconic one?
I'm not sure who made the greatest leap, but the one that surprised me most, I have to say, was Heath Ledger. When I found out he was announced for the role, I just wasn't convinced at all. But when I saw it, I was blown away, and I just can't look back now. Whenever I think the Joker, I just think of him. So that's my vote anyway.
You're not alone, Swappers. Pretty much everybody backlashed at his casting as the Joker when it was announced, and it wasn't until we saw him in the film that we were completely blown away. Bear in mind also, he was in that romantic cowboy comedy.
Mountain.
Correct, and he was phenomenal in that as well.
Well, here's the thing about Heath Ledger, and that's actually created my policy of I don't ever judge characters before I see the movie. I don't judge castings anymore, and that's exactly why. But anybody who knew anything about Heath Ledger knew he was a really good actor. Going back to even when he was younger, even when he was in The Patriot and stuff, like he was always came through on screen. So I'm not too surprised.
He was in Home and Away, right? Yeah,
he was. Yeah.
What? Yeah, so like I don't think it was too surprising. I will say the best transition is Cranston, because he goes from goofy dad to like the drug kingpin dad. I think that he stayed in the same lane. He just jumped to the other side, going the opposite direction. Basically, he started going.
You do know that Bryan Cranston, before he was in Malcolm in the Middle, he was in the original Power Rangers. He played Zordon.
No way.
Really? Yeah.
No, he didn't.
I'm going to look this up now.
That was the movie that he played it in.
Which way do you lean, Greg? Maybe it was easier back in the 80s to transfer from TV up to a film role. Maybe more permissible back then.
I guess I just wasn't paying as close of attention, so I didn't know a lot about Heath Ledger. So when he was the Joker, I think I knew him from The Patriot, but I pretty much just knew him from 10 Things. So that caught me off guard that he was that good of an actor, because I wasn't paying attention to see that he had a whole career and he had the chops and everything. I saw this, this scene of him singing on the bleachers and all that and just being goofy, and then he gave this performance and I thought, wow, where has this guy been? And apparently he was there all along.
He was also in A Knight's Tale. That's correct.
Yes,
there was this really weird film where it turns into this montage dance sequence to a David Bowie song. Still sticks in my mind how weird that was.
I did like that one. The problem is that, I mean, who was going to beat out Paul Bettany in that movie? Like, I don't remember anybody else even being in there. Alan Tudyk was in there also. So I'm sorry, Heath, but between Bettany and Tudyk, like, how you going to match that? And it wasn't a great character, but I don't think it was the supporting cast in that one that was really great.
Well,
I need to call out Miat, by the way. He was the voice. He was Zordon in the movie. He did do voice work for the show, but as villains.
Yeah, he was the monsters in the original.
It was.
And then he played
you were like,
Zordon in the 2017.
Yeah, you were like
film.
half right. So.
Oh,
I was like, there's no way that I didn't realize that.
All right. Well, it's fascinating to me how actors can make those particular leaps, and we're willing to kind of forego their previous roles and just acknowledge that they can take things to a new level. But to go from the plane, where Ricardo Montalban is dressed up as a fancy guy facilitating people's fantasies on an island, to this is City Alpha 5, whatever it is. Anyway. So this is kind of bubbling up now. I see this around the place. You may miss wokeness, that the sort of broader mainstream culture is starting to catch up on this. So you know how we're always 1 or 2 years ahead of everything? Like we shit on Marvel and say that it's expired and it's spent and it's all wasted. And then about a year and a half later, the mainstream media will start to speculate, is Marvel losing steam? And then we bitch and complain about Star Wars for about 3 or 4 years until eventually the media says, has Disney lost the ability to make magic with Star Wars? And then we've been saying for a year or two that this wokeness thing has been getting to a kind of fugue state and might have finally burnt itself out. And then a year and a half later, you get stuff like this, which comes up with saying, has wokeness peaked, or you may miss wokeness. Wokeness has few defenders left. That doesn't mean there's nothing to defend, speculates Jerusalem Demas. So I feel like we've been in the trenches. We've been like those Japanese soldiers left in the islands out long after the war is finished, and we're still fighting on and on. And but let's just go through it. Like in entertainment, in the small screen, DEI and what we would term as wokeness, though I've never liked the term myself, went to a peak fugue ridiculous state, and financial consequences are there for everyone to see. The worst ratings in 60 years, Doctor Who, and the Acolyte being cancelled and being destroyed. And then in the world of gaming, we've seen it enter into a fugue state of super ridiculous DEI and people making content for themselves in the writing room and losing gigantic sums of money and getting played by virtually no one on Steam. And we also saw it here with, again, The Atlantic. Take detransitioners seriously, and the woke war against J.K. Rowling has utterly failed, and here's the proof. And even for The Guardian, saying the CAS review of gender identity services marks a return to reason and evidence. It must be defended. So I kind of feel, Greg, like this kind of Band of Brothers thing, like we're coming back from Germany and we feel like we've been through some shit and we're bound together, but we've got like a silent understanding and a sense of catharsis that people who aren't veterans won't really be able to understand. What I feel like we've been through in the culture war.
Been called a lot of names, and then actually I got some great catharsis yesterday as reviews began to come out for the new Dragon Age game, and it confirmed everything that was fucking obvious about it from the very first reveal. But everybody, you don't know, it's not out yet, you just have to wait, you don't know, don't hate, don't grift, and then here it is, and we're getting actual gameplay clips and dialogue, and we see the writing, and damn,
keep your powder dry, because I'll let you opine on that a bit later, so keep your powder dry. But Yeah, Z, how does it feel to always consistently be right ahead of the rest of the culture and to have that lonely sense of knowingness and shrewdness? So it must be profound, but also frustrating. So how have you managed to keep your composure?
Well, I don't mind actually being progressive when it's natural and when it's organic and when we like all move forward together as a society as a whole. But when they do this respect our pronouns, men or women, and then they start putting breast removal scars in games, you're thinking, what the bloody hell is going on? And it's like a political agenda is being shoved down our throats in every single piece of media that we encounter today. And it's become tiresome and people are rejecting it and they don't want to see this. They just want good stories, character-driven narratives, world building. And it's something that we're just not getting in our media today. And people are starting to turn their backs on it and not before time.
Yeah, it's just that thing where in the broader mainstream culture of just everyday people, it's starting to feel passé. And I think people have kind of got the gist of that in the culture. Yeah. So a sense of course correction. Yeah, so you have people who have perhaps at heart some good ideas and notions about how society can progress, but to do it in a contrived and manufactured way that's in your face and cack-handed and gets people's backs up, yeah, I think it's kind of burnt itself out. So I guess the question is, what sort of weird phase are we in now where that's kind of acknowledged, but you're still going to have heavy influences of it in there anyway?
Ironically, we're in a transitional stage.
Yes, beat me to it by 1 second, see.
Yeah, I think we're currently at the whatever you call the I guess that'd be the trough, what the bottom of the guillotine. You know, that's not a guillotine. The fuck, I'm screwing up here. I'm sorry. Guys. No, the where it does this shit. We're on the
bottom of the pendulum.
Pendulum, that's it. The bottom of the pendulum.
We got it, everybody.
My brain kept going to guillotine. I'm like, that's not the right torture device. What's going on here? We're at the bottom of the pendulum. Sorry, that's where we're at. The bottom of the pendulum, and now it's starting to swing the other way. But the problem is it always tends to swing further each time. So we're probably going to end up on whatever the opposite, like the unwoke extreme is. I don't really know what that would be called.
But Greg,
sorry,
I'm
expecting the chat to tear me apart for that.
No, I think that you might see a little bit of like the anti-woke thing, but I think my prediction is going to be that all the people that were hired as part of this, surgence of we're going to tell all these representation stories, whatever, and we're going to hire the people, we're going to promote the Ibram X Kendis and give them publishing deals and let them direct and write and all of that. They're still working, and the executives, much like Inside Out 2, which maybe is a bad example because that actually was a really good movie, but I think you're going to start to see directives coming down from on top from the money people saying, we're not doing this. We're not doing the signaling. We're not going to just shove in these odd romances and thruples and, non-binary characters and all that. We're going to quit that. But you'll still be left with talentless hacks who will then be trying to just tell regular stories and still poorly. I think that's going to be the next couple of years.
But Greg, I kind of feel like I'm going to miss it in a way. Like, I feel like it's two brothers that have been like hemmed in the same bedroom with bunks, and we've just been at each other's throats, but kind of also at a deep level form some, strong connection. And then one of them goes to college, and the other brothers kind of feels at a loose end and kind of feels like I kind of miss him after all that. So in a weird kind of way, I feel that too.
It's all of our channels are going to suffer for it. You're getting rid of the canary in the coal mine, because right now you can spot some of this stuff and it's really easy to tell the crap before it even comes out, before you waste your time on it. And now that won't be there, and you'll just have to experience the crap head on with no warning.
Well, so swappers, in retrospect, how have you borne the burden of self-righteous being correct the whole time? How much of a burden has that been, and how good do you feel now that you've been proven correct in the eyes of the world?
Oh, feels great. Honestly, I'd like to say I'm glad that there's a swing back on this, but so much damage has been done to so many of our beloved IPs and novels, books, games, TV shows, you name it. That it's resulted in just nothing but apathy from even the normies to the people, the hardcore. And it's taken a while for this to bleed through to the normie sphere. And the whole thing has just resulted in mass apathy from all corners, and they're left with just diminishing returns on all products now. No one's interested anymore. People are just turning away on master things, and companies are failing. You know, they're feeling the pinch, even with BlackRock's funding. It's not working. So this is causing them to make this effort, make these changes. Now they've reached the edge of the cliff and they've got nowhere left to go. Whether the pendulum does actually swing back or not, I don't know. It might swing back a little way, then someone may rush in and push it all the way back to the in the orientation, and it was already going in, and it could get, you know, the wokest it's even than we've ever known. But it would be nice to see some kind of swing back in the opposite direction towards the right, and see parody movies and things that are aping the whole woke mindset and all the material that we've had for the last 5 or so, however many years it was since Ghostbusters 2016. And just to see, I think that projects like that would make an awful lot of money. I'd be there in the cinema. If it was a movie that was actually ripping the piss out of woke stuff, then yeah, I'm all for it. But whether we get that or not, it might take a while. You know, there's a lot of woke stuff still in production, unfortunately. And it's going to take a while before that's sort of shat out of the system before we can actually start enjoying something new coming down the pipeline again that's worthy of watching.
My fear for the parody stuff, I think there's a lot of material and you could do it, but it takes skill. And my fear is that there will be a lot of junk. There will be a lot of Jimmy Kimmel-esque stuff, but on the right, where you know, like stand-up comedians right now, that there's so many of them that just get on stage and go, "Hey, Orange Man bad," and the audience claps and they think that that's a success, but it's not actually funny. And I fear that there will be a lot of lady ballers. There will be a lot of new norm. There will be a lot of shit like that that is not good. But
full of like comedy doesn't work well if it's got a texture or element of retribution and snarky.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I have a feeling that there's going to be some vindictiveness going back.
Yeah.
And that's going to not, it might come off as funny at first. Like at first, I think that first, let's say for the sake of argument, there's this hard line, you know, at the bottom of the pit and the thing that does this shit, as somebody said. And
the swingy thing.
The swingy thing. But when it gets to the that first year or two, if like let's say it just has this hard cut to the other side, will be funny for people who have been fighting against it for a while, and then it'll start to get annoying because it's like okay, you know, and then we'll be right back, but on the other side, and then that's the negative aspect of it. Like I said,
either direction is going to be a detriment to decent entertainment, isn't it? It's going to take away from just enjoying something that should just be enjoyable and not have any stance whatsoever. You're right. Yeah.
Big Cat Lee summed it up best. We need the pendulum to stop. That's what we needed to do. Stop right in the middle, and
somebody remove it.
A pendulum swing is not a course correction. Yeah. So Nayat, like there was an Australian rugby player who, having just won the World Cup, he fascinatingly said in retrospect that is that it? Like when he was on the field and they were being handed the cup, like they've been so psychologically prepped and throwing their whole lives into this thing that you just get this piece of a trophy. It felt kind of hollow, like his sense was now what, like the kind of a release of energy and tension. So do you feel in the culture, having been in the trenches for so long and been so psychologically prepped to find this stuff antagonistic, and now you're kind of prevailed, is there a slightly hollow sense of, well, now what? I feel like I've been attacking this crap. What now?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a sense of vindication. But while it's great that things are sort of heading back to the middle, or at least appearing to, it's been at the cost of all of our favorite properties and IPs, which have burnt to the ground. So this does feel like a bit of a bittersweet victory.
Yeah, a Pyrrhic one, if you will.
Exactly.
I think that the fight back has only happened over the last few years. You've still got a lot of stuff that was still in production and still yet to be released that is going to contain all of this messaging. I mean, is anybody anticipated for the new Captain America movie or the Thunderbolts?
Yes, from the channel. Yes, I'm very excited for that
one.
The
issue is that a lot of them thought if we delay, it'll all blow over, like Snow White, that sort of thing. So a lot of these studios thought, okay, let's not all release it into this bad PR. We'll push it off for a year or two. We'll blame the writer's strike or whatever, and then it'll all blow over, and it's not, and it's dragging out all of the things that were greenlit 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they're going to continue to trickle out and it's going to be gross. And even if right now studios are thinking, okay, this isn't working, we got to shift gears. That's 5 years before anything they come up with right now sees the light of day.
Also, at what point are you fighting over just a city that's been burned to the ground, so to say? You have the two sides fighting, and now you have what you win, but what is there left if all of these great IPs are gone for the most part? Like, people just don't care; they've been ruined. It's actually easy. It would actually be easier for people to create new things and to revive these completely destroyed ones.
Yeah,
and
So
I'm not sure if the
popular culture
people.
is Mariupol now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the right people are around to do that right now. I think that the skilled writers are fewer and further between than they ever were.
I think you're going to see it on YouTube. That's my prediction. I think that since it's so easy and it's free and camera equipment, you can get a professional looking production for not that much money. Obviously, you don't just want to shoot it on an iPhone or I use I brought it up here on accident. I use a ZV-1. So you're not going to get something with a $700 camera, but it's not that much. And if you've got a couple of buddies who are passionate and you're good at writing, I think that you're going to see it on YouTube, because it's very much like video games where the tools are there now for the everyman. You don't have to go work for Blizzard. You don't have to go work for a giant studio to access their technology. Anybody can use Unreal Engine, Unity Engine, and anybody now can make a short film. And I think you're going to start to see those pop up a lot more on YouTube, and then they'll turn into series, is what I'm seeing. And as they make money, that's how they'll kind of get themselves off the ground and get more professional help and kind of take off from there. But I think over the next couple of years, you're going to start to see that indie shows, indie movies, things of that nature.
I think I concur with that. We're already seeing a lot of creators doing things like that. Star Wars Theory's own Star Wars project, for instance, it's far better than anything Disney have made. There's Mega Geek with Rebecca Gold and his independent movies. They're fantastic, and these are free to view on YouTube. And a lot of these major companies and corporations are gatekeeping anyone from making anything original and with their own preferences. I know that Mega Geek himself tried to get a job at the BBC some years ago, and they put all these demands on his creativity, and he just said, "No, I'm not doing this." So if YouTube's there, then there's nothing stopping these people from actually getting their idea to screen. And with the advent of AI as it is now, and the way it's going to progress in the next 5-10 years, it's going to make this kind of procedure even easier.
I can say this, having worked in the AV industry for years, if you're trying to get good equipment at good prices, every single time one of these production companies goes under, whether it be a live events company, a movie company, whatever, whenever they go under, all of their stuff ends up on these discount websites, like Gear Source is one of them. And you can get that kind of stuff, professional level. It'll be a little bit older. It won't be, the brand new, high-end camera that just came out, but you can get one that's maybe like 8 years old that's still perfectly fine and get good mileage still out of it.
Well, speaking of compelling content that unwittingly makes its way onto YouTube, Z, I've accessed another one of your multi-subfiles.
Oh, no.
Particularly good form to make all sorts of promises about wanting to isolate someone's reverse power coupling, only to then unaccountably desert them in a crowded club, and instead saunter off to a hotel with a notoriously promiscuous twink of a younger astromech droid, and apparently spurt more white fluid all over the place than the robot Ash at the end of Alien.
Well, come on, Z, what's going on there? It's pretty
I don't care.
Calculon's back.
Calculon is dead. Rip Calculon. Dead droids tell no tales.
They also don't resist.
Okay. What do I have next on the thing here? Well, is anyone watching this shit?
Yes. Isn't it great?
I have been watching.
You go first.
This is diminishing returns. Like, not even Disparu is getting views on this shit. Like, no one cares enough even to shit on it or watch it being shat upon.
I'm gonna finish the show. Like, I'm gonna finish my run of the videos for it, but begrudgingly. It's like I'm 6 episodes of 9 committed. I'm 2/3 of the way. I might as well finish it. But this has not been. They alienated any audience they could have possibly had with Agatha. They've gotten to a point now where, and the funniest part is this most previous episode had some solid writing to it. I mean, not the whole thing, but there was aspects of it, little nuggets. The one in the middle there, the character's name, I call her, yeah, that's it. I call her Moaning Myrtle, but she, or Bemoaning Myrtle, I started calling her after a while. But
That's good.
She,
Solid.
the whole show, she's been having these like random moments where she screams or talks to someone off screen, and they finally culminated in that she kind of has similar to Dr. Manhattan, where she lives her timeline non-linearly, so she's experienced everything at once. And it was actually a really good payoff for a lot of small nuggets that didn't seem to mean much at the time. Unfortunately, it took place in episode 7, way after any casual audience would be gone. And so they've already lost any goodwill they could have built up with a good episode. And there was still some wokeness in there. You know, there's I found out that you call the person who you're doing a tarot card reading for is apparently called a querent, and then they do it for Wiccan, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm a queer ent." Like he like says it like that. It's like it's still, that stuff's still in there, but there was just they finally had some payoffs and some decent writing, and no one cares. No one's watching it.
So hard to get a sense of what the figures are. It's all over the place in the media. Is it doing well? Is it not doing well? Are the figures sketchy? Is there fuzzy math involved in the figures? I
don't think there's been any figures. I haven't seen them say anything since the first 2 episodes about anything.
I don't even think this week it was trending on Twitter at any point.
The biggest problem they have is there's no character development. This was the first real true character development episode. And then they just killed her off at the end, and they just keep doing that. Somebody uses up their usefulness, and then they kill them off. It's getting to the point where, you know, they're treating characters like disposable NPCs and not actually real, authentic characters.
I love that New Jersey wharf. That was beautiful.
It does come out from time to time.
Yeah, if there's a further center from the epicenter of my taste and aesthetics and sensibilities, this show would be it. And so that's the medium in which I watch this show with a strange kind of curiosity. What is the furthest extreme from what I would ordinarily choose to watch and find entertaining and relatable? So it's vaguely interesting in that sense, but everything is gaudy and gross to look at, and the color schemes and everything. The characterization is horrible. Everyone's kind of bitchy and high-strung towards each other. It's peculiar and it's horrific to watch. But the only one good thing is that whilst watching it, you can literally skip forward in 1 or 2 minute increments without losing the thread of the plot or the general tenor of any episode, because it's so full of filler and repeated tropes. So you know the contours of a trope that are coming up, so you can literally just fast forward through it or skip ahead 1 or 2 minutes like that. But Z, is there anything redeemable about the show in a non-meta, non-ironical way?
Not really. Agatha all along has CW Batwoman levels of cringe. They cannot, and I mean absolutely cannot, spend a single episode without mentioning how queer they all are, which is just crawls along my spine. We get it. You're all gay. Get over it. But in saying that, I actually enjoyed this week's episode. I found a great setup over the previous episodes. Lillian's story was compelling, and it was like completing a jigsaw. And I thought they also portrayed tarot as a realistic magic mechanic, whereas you had Agatha just throwing the cards on the table as if they mean nothing. It's like Lillian knew all along exactly what she was doing and how to do it. And I really liked seeing the end of her story. So this episode was probably the best one out of the 7 they've aired so far. But I don't hold up much hope for the ending.
I think it's just dragged down by being part of the MCU. I think that was their big mistake. I think if Disney had just said, hey, you all that love Hocus Pocus, look, we made an October show for you. It's for wine moms. Market it directly to who it's for. I think that it would have been fine. Because from everything that I've heard, it's a very average show. Not great. I don't know that I've heard anybody say that it's just absolute dog shit, horrible. It's not, but everybody that's talking about it has been watching the MCU, which is overwhelmingly guys. So attaching it to that brings that person, like you can only view it through that lens. It's hard to disconnect that. And it also signals to everybody, hey, this is where we're taking the MCU, which is it's bad on two fronts. It sinks the show because the audience isn't there for it, and the audience that should be watching it wasn't marketed to them. And it also lets us all know that this is the future of the MCU right here. This is the stuff that they want to do, and it gives you bad vibes about everything else that they have in the works. I'm not hopeful for Thunderbolts like I thought I was going to be, because clearly this is the stuff they want to prioritize.
DarkHour, I worry that I'm deeply shallow, but one thing that I always think of when I'm watching these episodes is the fact that Aubrey Plaza has maybe lost like 30% of her hotness.
So I do have a running gag in my videos about that kind of, but she definitely, I mean, she's 40 now. She can't play the like 26-year-old like young chick anymore. And when they do close-ups, you can see she's had some work done.
Mm-hmm.
But she's still pulling her weight in terms of, I mean, especially I like to call it like Marine Corps girl syndrome. She's the hottest by association. Like the rest of them are not particularly attractive.
She's the sluttiest nun in the convent.
Yeah, so to say. But she's, like obviously she can't pull off what she did 10, 15 years ago. It's just not going to happen. That being said, she's probably the best part of the show because she's having the time of her goddamn life in every scene she's in. She's like campy as hell, like cackling. I think she would have, if they would have got her involved earlier in the MCU, she would have fit in just fine, and I think she would have done successful. The rest of them, though, it's just they're all like I forget who said it, but they're all very bitchy. The character development is very shallow. Like I said, everybody gets killed off. Greg is absolutely right. Trying to attach it into something, you can't isolate something from a shared universe. It's just not possible. You cannot have something that is for only a segment of people, even within that shared universe. Even if you already have this pocket of people that are also part of the larger collection of people watching, you can't only appeal to them because you lose the 98% of other people who could be watching it. And where could this even go? I don't even know where this could possibly go from here. It can't have any connection to anything that's coming out. And how is this going to connect to Captain America? How is this going to connect to the Thunderbolts? It's not. It's just isolated crap.
Z, did you get vague sort of vibes of Q from Star Trek: The Next Generation, where he's kind of string puller but also dispassionate observer at the same time?
What, from Audrey Plaza's death?
Yeah, no, from her character.
From her character, it is very much like that. But Q is a bit more proactive in his approach, whereas she just seems to be just sitting back, watching things happen, collecting bodies as they go along. Whereas Q is usually the cause of the trouble in the first place.
That's true. All right. Well, it's a bullshit show. So there you go. Greg, take us through this. And you're also in charge of the stream for the next 3 minutes or so. So go.
All right, here we go. Actually, this one is not super duper woke from what I can tell. But it does have Sweet Baby attached to it. I guess they were brought in to help write narrative or help with the show or help with the game or something like that. I looked into some of the reviews, and overall, it just looks like a very low quality product. And it's like a AA game. It was being sold for $50, where most games nowadays are $70. So it was not aiming for super high quality. It was a mid-grade product. And if it had delivered a mid-grade quality, I don't think a lot of people would have been as upset. But overall, it's just adding to the trend that anything with a consulting company like Sweet Baby, or anything that is, look, we have a strong female character, or anything that smells of that sort of modern audience attitude, also comes with very, very poor quality. And this game continues the trend. It just doesn't play well. I've seen a lot of gameplay of it. I've watched a lot of reviews of it. I did look into the dialogue to see if it was trying to have really cringy, force a message kind of dialogue. And thus far, I can't find anything like that. But also, not a lot of people bought and played this. So there isn't a lot of reliable footage for this one. But it's just more of the same. If it were mid, it would be one thing. I could say, okay, if it's mid, get it on sale, no big deal. But it's bad. It's just bad. It's more crap quality stuff. And they thought that this gal from The Witcher was going to sell it, and they made the mistake of attaching themselves to a company that has one of the worst brands in all of entertainment right now. It's no good. Any of you guys seen anything about this?
This is the first I've heard about this game, to be honest with you.
A lot of
it's flying under the radar. It's real bad, especially with the new Dragon Age coming out Thursday. Have you guys heard about that one?
Nada.
Oh, what, the
Yeah,
Veilguard?
I've heard a
Yeah,
little
the
bit about it.
Veilguard coming out.
Yeah,
Veilguard.
I've heard a few things about that. Not good things.
No, not a lot of good things in general. I think that one's going to be this was what's interesting is a lot of these games, they pop up in the news for a second because they're either attached to Sweet Baby or a consulting company like Sweet Baby, or they have people that work for them that have made public comments about gamers being, crybabies or just some kind of insulting comments toward the audience, but they come and go real fast. I think 2 months ago, there was a game called Flintlock Siege of Dawn. Same thing. It was in the news cycle for 2 or 3 days. It had your typical side shave, strong female character. The gameplay was very average to below average, and then it disappeared. This one is going to be the same way. It's very average to below average gameplay. It's attached to some of these companies that have terrible brand names now, and next week no one's going to talk about it. But they will still be talking about the Dragon Age: The Veilguard, because that is from a very large studio that is owned by an even larger studio. It has a very big history. BioWare as a company has a very big history. And the story there is just kind of the downfall of that company, the absolute low quality crap that they've been putting out for a couple of years. And while this one, I can't find a lot of dialogue or gameplay situations that are just in your face with the message, the Veilguard absolutely is. As a matter of fact, I took some notes today because I did actually watch a scene. One of them was in an IGN review, and the reviewer said, as a non-binary person myself, Veilguard contains some of the most authentic representations of coming to terms with general gender stuff and having to navigate your family's reaction to it I've ever seen in a game. It doesn't feel like an old school or an after school special or like I'm being pandered to. It's quite well handled. And I saw a clip of that, and the character is explaining to their family, it's non-binary. I'm not going to go by she. I'm going by they now. And this particular character makes constant commentary about how they wear clothing from different genders or different places, and makes really obvious statements about, I like to have one foot in both places, or I like to mix and match. I'm a little bit of both. Apparently, it's some of the cringiest dialogue that you've ever heard. There is an option for you to look into a magic mirror and identify yourself as transgender, which the game tells you will open up new dialogue options. Like, it's a big thing that they allow you to say, do you have surgery scars or not? Do you have, what are you going to go by? What are your pronouns? It's real bad. It's very, very bad. And it's what it stems from is the fact that the game's director is a trans woman, I think is the correct way. It's a guy that is cosplaying as a woman now. And no one is allowed to tell that director, hey, this sucks. This is bad dialogue. Like that is the reason that these things are such low quality, is because the people in charge, no one can say to them, I don't think that this is very good. Like, just from a basic writing standpoint, just the very basic tenets of what makes good dialogue, this isn't it. And you can't say that because then you're a bigot. And so this stuff makes it into the game, and it's bloated with it. It's very, very bad. You're gonna be hearing about that for a week or two at least. It's gonna be a big story.
That has been a huge problem all along, and this with movies, TV, everything. It's that the people who are in charge they want to make it for themselves. They want themselves to be the center of the attention. It's no longer about making something and you not and you being over here helping it be better. You have to be the center of attention. In this instance is what you're talking about. You can tell that game that right there is definitely not AAA though, because they didn't uglify the crap out of her. So
yeah, and that I can give points.
What was it? 24-hour peak 166, all-time peak 285 on Steam.
Yeah.
So, Greg, that's shocking, right?
We talked about Concord a few weeks ago, and that peaked just below 700. So this is, and I can give some leeway for a AA game if it's this is a first-time product from a studio. It's owned by Bandai Namco, but it's their very first product for this particular developer. It's a smaller team, it's a smaller budget. So things like bad graphics, I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need the most photorealistic, gorgeous graphics. In fact, what we've been seeing lately are companies that are moving away from that, and they're investing in art direction. For one, there was a game that came out a few years ago called Ghost of Tsushima, and it is on the island of Tsushima in Japan. It doesn't have the greatest graphics that you've ever seen. I think they're pretty well done, but the art direction is what stands out. The framing of how the game is put together, the colors that they're using, it was gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful. And the combat was very smooth. The gameplay itself, the thing that you spend most of your time doing, it was fantastic. You see these smaller studios that are putting together games that they're purposely just choosing very cartoony, very low grade, low res graphics, and they're coming through with interesting ideas. And that is what makes the game so good. And then you have these giant companies, very much like the MCU, where they're putting tons of money in on the VFX. They think that the Flash is going to sell it all. And underneath, you have a very stale, very low quality product that doesn't move you in any way, and it loses a massive amount of money. You're seeing the exact same trend happening in gaming right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, the sun is setting on the East Coast, which means that our friend DarkHour must fly. But thanks for stopping in. Like our third stream.
Not a problem. I wanted to be here for the year, even if I can only stay for a little bit of it. I wanted to congratulate you on this. It's a great feeling to get your live stream to a year anniversary, and I wanted to be part of it. So thank you for having me.
Cool, man. All right. Well, we'll see you anon, and thanks for stopping by.
I'm buying that shirt.
Yeah, it's good, right?
Oh, I'm gonna get that shirt.
Okay. Well, while we're here, I'm just going to go to the to remove this for a second, because you know who are the best people in the world? It's people who contribute to the Echo Chamberlain live stream with super chats, and not least is M8566, member for 2 months. Happy anniversary to the Echo Chamber, Echo. So thanks, M8566. You've always been stupendously generous, and no less so with the gifting of 5 Echo Chamberlain memberships. So that's so go grab that lolly scramble of memberships there in the chat. So go enjoy that, everyone. Oops, there's that. And then Brian Bring for $19.99. So close to Halloween. What scene from a non-scary movie scared you when you were a kid? Mine was Close Encounters when the boy was abducted. R.I.P. Terry Garr. That scene is 5 minutes of cinematic perfection. The rattling kitchen implements, the orange light, the POV of the thing coming down the chimney, unbelievable. So a non-scary movie scene. Anyone got any ideas?
The first thing that popped to mind was Island of Dr. Moreau, which I watched younger than I should have. And there was a lot about that I think wasn't supposed to be scary, but as a child, it terrified the absolute shit out of me. I think it was the guy digging the chip out of his stomach that absolutely grossed me out and freaked me out. And then just the sinister look that he gave Moreau, or he gave Iceman.
Yeah.
It was actually a really well done scene looking back at it, because he gave him a look like, now what the fuck are you gonna do? And it kind of freaked me out, and it was very unsettling, and that was the first thing that popped in mind for me.
I'm trying to think. Perhaps the Untouchables, where the baby and the pram is in slow motion going down the stairs. That whole scene.
Oh, that is a good scene.
Freaking out about the fate of the baby there, I think.
For me, it would have to be. Go on, see.
I was just about to say, I don't know if Jaws would be counted as a scary movie, but the diver scene gets me every time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how many times I watch that movie, that diver scene will always grab me.
Yeah, and Spielberg threw that in at the absolute last minute because he thought the tension was wearing off from the film, so he just needed a little scene in there for a jump scare, and thank God he did.
I've got a couple with that just quickly. The scene where Robert Vaughn's sister gets converted into a cyborg in Superman 3, where he gets like,
oh yeah, definitely.
She gets metal plates like fused onto her body, and then she gets these superpowers, and she's being puppeted by this giant computer. It's absolutely a hideous moment, but it's fantastic. And also in ET as well, when the government officers all invade Elliot's home in space. Yeah, that's really scary. I mean, that film's got some kind of very eerie bits to it, even though it's very child friendly generally. But that's a very unsettling moment of the movie. It sticks in my mind still to this day, how unsettled I felt as an 8-year-old sitting there gripping the seat in the cinema.
I was about the same age when I saw the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and for me, it was the face melting scene, which really caught me off guard, because up until that point, it was an adventure, action, comedy romp, and then you see this horrific scene, and traumatized me as a kid.
I think Lucas was good at sort of injecting stealth horror into his productions at certain stages, or really kind of maybe a little bit of body horror or kind of questionable imagery, like the dying ogre in Star Wars in the trash compactor and the Sarlacc pits.
Oh yeah,
and, things like that. You just don't expect it in a sci-fi movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, M8566 again for $5. Echo, be honest. How much Lando and L3 fan fiction have you written, and where can we find it? Well, it's under various pseudonyms, so you just have to be clever. So yeah, it's erotically tinged, and it's out there in the public for people to find. So, is there a Lando film coming out? I keep losing track of that. The Donald Glover thing.
I'm not sure. I thought it was going to be a series, and then it's a movie, then it's a series.
I don't know what happened.
It's one of those things. It's like Blade, isn't it?
It's
that gift that's never going to arrive, like Ryan Johnson's trilogy.
Yeah,
it's been like
I heard
speculatively speculatively in production for so long that it sort of comes and goes in the mind, and you keep forgetting that it's even a project.
Well, Donald Glover kind of announced a little while ago that he's working on something. He's writing it or something. I don't know. So it's very confusing. Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? Brian Bring for $9.99. Thanks for the live stream, Echo. Well, thank you, Brian Bring, for the joy that you bring simply by being Brian Bring. We all appreciate that.
Pick up the phone.
But check it out. It's practically my patron now, Mo Sislak, for $49.99 of real hardcore American currency. Can't watch. Here's support. Ellie is gay, by the way.
I would lay money that they mention that in every episode of season 2 of The Last of Us.
Oh yeah,
probably yeah. When is that season coming out? Because I can't get enough Pedro Pascal. He's been off the screen for so long. He's so rare that we hardly ever get to see him.
Oh fuck!
He's back on in 2 weeks with Gladiator 2.
I have to play it if that show is going to be made.
Looks like 2025 it'll be out.
Yeah. Gladiator 2, what the fuck is Paul Mescal doing as the main muscular buff hero dude in that? It's so weird. I don't know.
Have you seen the side? Sorry, okay, go on.
No, that was just my thought.
Have you seen the side-by-side comparison of his promotional shot for a mainstream magazine where he's wearing women's clothing, and it's compared to the Russell Crowe in Empire magazine looking all masculine? Like,
oh my God, what's going on there? He's not that actor. He was in After Sun, which was one of my favorite films of last year or a couple of years ago. So I don't know what the fuck he's doing in this. Emma Serial for $20 there. Congratulations on the anniversary. And here's to another. Thank you for all the entertainment. Well, you're very much welcome. It's been one hell of a year in which we've all been vindicated. So I'll just remove these. And what's next here? So I'll put this back on. Here we go. All right. The Billboard Top 100. Greg. In fact, I want to go through the panel around the horn. How many bands do you think are in the top 100 of the Billboard 100? So not solo artists, but actual bands. What would be your number if you were to guess?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna go with 8.
8 bands from Greg. Yet?
I'd probably say 6.
6 from Niad. Swappers?
A band's even a thing anymore, really. I mean, realistically, I'd probably say around about 30, but that's my head from about 20 years ago. So now, I don't know. It's probably got to be in single figures, isn't it? I'll say 9. Why not?
9 from Swappers. Z?
2.
Well, the answer was 0.
What?
Currently,
wow.
0 bands on the Billboard Hot 100. And it's this extraordinary cultural change driven mainly by the fact that bands are too expensive. To record drummers and record all the instrumentalists costs too much. Plus, bands are too volatile, so they tend to argue with each other and have creative differences and break up and split up and go in different directions. So that's no longer a good investment. So it's nothing but Billie Eilish's and Taylor Swift's and all that kind of stuff, and shabuzis, because solo artists are now the commodity.
Hate that
So
song.
yeah, I know. So it's solo artists occasionally working in collaboration with some other solo artist, with the music produced by random musicians my age or older who are coming up with the compositions and recording them, usually in isolation. So one musician will send the stems of the song to another musician, and they will record it in their bedroom, and it goes around like that. With the catastrophic consequence being that without bands, you don't have those wild creative differences that cause that synergy and that excitement of music, and you don't have great instrumentalists, and you don't have the kind of yin and yang of an extrovert frontman and a more subdued but cool, guy who might be the main guitar. And you don't have that cultural phenomenon of a band that bursts into the zeitgeist, into popular culture, and captures the imagination. And you can't follow their travails. And so it's deeply sad, because solo artists is really kind of soulless. And again, it's what I call the on the street test, where if you were to ask average people on the street to name 2 songs by these people who are currently, cultural icons, most people wouldn't be able to come up with 1 or 2 songs. I would say that if you took a poll in the street of maybe 50 just random people, how many of them would be able to name more than 2 Taylor Swift songs?
Mm-hmm.
I doubt very many at all. So it's terrible. It's a terrible state of affairs, and that's why music has become so insidious and so programmatic. And yeah, so here, rock and roll is the one in yellow, so it shows the peak times in the charts. So genre representation on the Billboard chart, and you see so sort of from like the mid 60s through to the early to mid 90s, the big spike in rock and roll. So you get your Beatles and your Rolling Stones and your Queen and your Led Zeppelin and all of that. All the iconic music that young people tend to listen to quite a lot, and which is on all the radio stations all the time and will last the test of time, well past when we're all in the grave. And then you had that horrible, insidious moment in the 90s where R&B went through its Great Gatsby phase, and all the music videos were lush and overproduced for about 5 or 6 years. And then now you see that the rap and hip hop
Big had a whole drama. Oh god, that was so good.
It was, yeah. So now you see rap, hip hop, and pop lurched into the ascendancy, and this is slightly out of date. So those big 2 numbers at the end, they've lurched even higher up now to become pretty much just ubiquitous and just the whole point of everything. So rock and roll just kind of died, to the fact now currently 0 bands on the Billboard Top 100.
Well, and I think that a lot of that does reflect that it's very producer driven, and that's because, like you said, it's very easy. If you're a talented producer, you are the talent. You don't really need anybody. You can produce 40 songs a month, and any kid that they can sign with a pretty face that can halfway sing, that you can auto tune onto your very good beat, you're good to go. And rap and pop both have crazy turnover. You'll get a rap artist that they'll have 1 album maybe, and then you never hear from them again because they don't bring a lot of talent. They just have a nice producer, and as soon as they're done with their usefulness, they're gone. And you're seeing the exact same thing with pop. I don't know where Olivia Rodrigo is these days. She was big last year. Not sure if she's still doing anything or if she's just waiting for her producer to make some more music, but that doesn't shock me at all that it's all solo, because it's not even them. It's the behind the scenes. It's all studio music. Well,
her next big song will be License to Vote, I suppose. That'll be the next one after License to Drive. So, but what else are we going to say? So there's a kind of phrase in the music industry, add a word, get a third, which means these artists, you see it in the writing credits, their names are included. But what actually happens is that in order to get publishing rights and to get at least half of the money, some people will go to Beyonce with a song, and she will say, yep, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to record it, I'm going to change 1 word so that I can get 50% of the royalties and have my name as a composer on the publishing list. And then what are they going to say? They're going to say, well, this is my big break where it's going to sell in the millions. So yeah, I'm going to give 50% of the song I wrote to Beyonce, and then she's going to record it. And so I'm not going to say no. So that's pretty much how it works now.
Well, we've talked about this before. That I think the way music is consumed has also changed. I was talking to a buddy of mine Saturday. We were getting some breakfast, and I mean, it might just be well, it is because I'm older, but I don't go to shows anymore, and I'm not sure if young people are going to shows as much. So you're not seeing a lot.
I think they go to festivals. That seems to be the gist I get. They go to festivals, but they don't go to sort of mainstream shows when people are touring. That's basically the gist I get.
Yeah, but we were talking about well, a band that we both used to like that is really, they're still making music and they shouldn't, but you used to go to a local show and you would see a big headliner, but you would also see some local folks that the venue, managed to scrounge up, and you had these local bands they had this chance to kind of grow and develop and learn from these other bands. I think music is just not consumed in the exact same way. Like you said, there's a lot more festivals, so you got to be kind of a big name to even get to one of those. So you don't have the residence time as a small band to find your sound, to get your songs written, actually practice them out. And you also don't have the same music scenes that you would have before the internet, when things were just on radio, and there was a lot more of a local scene. So you would have kind of that, like California ska, California pop punk, a lot of that stuff. There was a lot of Orange County bands that came out, and they were all, like a lot of these guys went to the same school. They all knew each other. They came from the same county. And that was a scene that popped out around 2000. You just don't have that as much anymore because people are not consuming music in the exact same way. We're all streaming it. I don't listen to brand new music. I listen to the exact same music all the time in a playlist. I don't need new music. I have pop punk, ska, and emo from the 2000s, and I have the 70s, and that is all I will ever need. And I don't need new stuff. So
you really bring
with
the
that,
dad energy.
Do you think that audience preferences have changed? Because, like in the past, bands often gain momentum, as you said, through radio play, traditional media coverage. But I think to a point, streaming algorithms might promote solo hits and viral tracks. But like you said, people have their own playlist. They'll listen to a particular artist or a group of artists, and they won't stray from that. Whereas before, music was a bit more diversified. You were forced to listen to different bands and different genres as well, because you were just listening to the radio.
Yeah, exactly. You had the radio on, and that was it. Well, and I think that you're absolutely right that there's some of it that is the way that it's, a lot of it is designed to be heard on either TikTok or Instagram too. So a lot of new bands, they'll get a lot of traction because they have a song that has a part that makes a great audio for a reel or something, and it gets used a bunch. But if you think about the kind of music that would be really great for a 20 or 30 second comedy reel or whatever for someone to act out over the top of, it's not generally going to be rock and roll. If I'm looking at these genres, if I was going to make a funny little reel, I would maybe use R&B. If I was doing something funny, like I'm going to have a delicious meal and look, I've got this genuine talking about fucking, and I'm looking at a hamburger, and that's funny because I'm, sexually attracted to my food. But I'm not going to go for soul or rock or not even really country. I'm going to go with something poppy with very generic lyrics that emphasize whatever little TikTok point that I'm trying to make. And I'm not trying to sound condescending. I know it comes across that way, but I just think that it lends itself to that medium, and then those are the folks that's how they get discovered. Everybody else is swimming in a sea of obscurity because the radio isn't what it was.
Absolutely. Well, combine that with this is in the film world, going from the early 1980s. So in 1981, the amount of sequels or reboots, as we would say, was 16%, and now it's gone way over 50%, like towards 60% now, of just sequels and reboots and rehashes and reimaginings of content. So culture's kind of like kind of got shitty and dying for all these reasons. So then I put some thought to it, Greg, and I thought we all need to go into a time machine and just live in 1997 forever. I thought this is where everything peaked. Look, Tony Blair has just been swept into power. He seems like a nice guy. Like he hasn't done anything bad yet. He seems rock and roll. It seems cool. Look, Lady Diana, she's still alive and she's really thriving now. She's in a relationship.
So beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's going
People's
great.
princess.
Exactly. Look, Blur and Oasis, everything's cool. I'm sure Oasis's new album is going to be great when it drops in a couple of weeks. Common people there, Britpop, The Verve, they're going strong. OK Computer and Radiohead, it's amazing. They're just going to get better and better as the years go by. In America, look how happy and united everyone is. They've balanced the budget, Greg. We've got budget surpluses going on. Everything's fantastic now. No one's heard of any interns called Monica or whatever. So everything's fine. So Bill Clinton's going to be great.
The internet is still kind of pure and fun.
Yeah.
And
so my decision
weird.
is we should all just go back to 1997 and live in there in a perpetual loop. That's what do you think?
I'm good with it.
100%.
I'm down. Let's pull our resources together and build a time machine.
Yeah. I should just create a stream called the 1997 stream where it's just iconography and imagery. In fact, it could be like one of those things which is just a YouTube stream that constantly plays for hours and hours on end where people can just go to an oasis of 1997 and just live there. So I think that's the plan. Oh my God. So, I'm sorry, 1997, for all that's happened.
I was watching Dragon Ball Z. The fucking Frieza saga. It was amazing.
And that P. Diddy guy, he seems like a swell guy, and Kevin Spacey's really doing well. And Bill Cosby is a beloved icon.
Everyone was getting really excited for the new Star Wars movies as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know. Bowie and Prince live.
Oh yeah. Oh well. So that's the situation there. So I wanted to try
Command and Conquer, Red Alert. Oh.
Can I just say I've been playing video games from that year, or just between there and 2000 for like the last God knows how long. I got one of those retro consoles, like an RG35 SP. Amazing thing, absolutely amazing thing. Like it mimics the Game Boy Advance SP with a flip lid, And I just installed every game, all my favorite games I always wanted to play that never had the money to buy the consoles on it from all the best consoles. And man, I have wasted some hours. Like forget Morrowind or whatever. I mean, I've lost. The sun has come up and gone down and back again, and I've been wasting my life away on Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And my God, that has just given me such a lust for gaming again. That game alone, I got so jaded with AAA titles and full 3D graphics and the PS5 and all that crap. Get rid of it. I just want to go back to beautiful pixel art and amazing animation and simple 2D mechanics. And it has been such a massive injection of adrenaline playing those games again. So 997 gets my vote for games at least. I think what did we have? PlayStation and Nintendo 64 were the pinnacle at that time.
PlayStation was out, I think, in 97. And I want to say Final Fantasy 7 came out in 98. No, 1997. God damn it, Final Fantasy 7. Yes, 97's where it's at.
Wow, nice. I got a PlayStation in 95, and it was an American import because the Japanese one, all the games were in Japanese. I didn't want to do that. The UK one had it suffered from the terrible PAL output on the TV, which meant that it was letterboxed and the speed was down, and it had this terrible gaussing on the quality of the video. I thought, no, the Americans, the Yanks know what they're doing, man. I bought one with SCART output, and that was perfect. And I was just blown away. The 3D era had begun. And I was just, I picked up that controller, man. It was just spaffing off at every game that came out. Tekken, Ridge Racer, you name it, man. This is what I've been wanting for so long. And yeah, those few years, from 95 to 98 were just pinnacle.
I could play Quake again.
Was 97. I think Monkey, whatever, you kind of catch the monkeys. Oh yeah, the original PlayStation games they were so full of heart and taking advantage of the technology to like really just explore new ideas, but not rely on the technology.
It was new gameplay ideas in 3 dimensions, like Jumping Flash, which was one of the earliest games that came out on the PlayStation. Incredible, like platform games in the 3rd dimension. I love platform games, but that was like that blew my mind. I didn't even know that was possible. It was awesome.
Well, so I'm going to do a new segment here that I like to call Hypothetical. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run some hypotheticals past you and see where you stand. So I'll start with you, Z. So it's basically a scenario, and I just want to see which way you fall in this hypothetical. So Z, welcome to the BBC. I just want to say that, you know, as
What does that stand for here?
well, let's put that aside because we've got some business to do,
Okay.
which is, as you know, Russell T Davies is stepping down shortly. And listen, we've been looking at your screen treatments and ideas for Doctor Who, and I just want to say we're all deeply impressed. So we're looking forward to signing
thank you
you
very
on. We're going to
much.
give you a clean slate with Doctor Who. You're going to rejuvenate the franchise. You're going to be a breath of fresh air, and you're going to get us back on its feet. It's going to be great. Also, we're talking a £120,000 package here with all the trimmings, which I think you'll be delighted for. Yeah. So also, I just wanted to tell you that we're looking at signing Jodie Turner-Smith as the next Doctor. So yeah, I'm sure the two of you will have a great synergy and energy. So here's the paperwork. Let's just get your John Thomas on the dotted line there.
Oh my God. What would I do?
Yes.
What? I mean, part of me has always said, let's put the thing on a 10-year hiatus.
Sort of a
And then-
timey-wimey figure. It's been very patriarchal.
Yeah. Oh, I'd bring back some more iconic villains. I'd expand on some more lore. I'd steer well away from the timeless children nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you
all
know,
of the
Miss Smith is she's got some strong opinions of her own, and she's almost
Yeah,
a veteran now. So I'm sure the two of you will get along famously. And
she's welcome to her strong opinions, but it obviously won't appear in the show. So people
no,
are welcome
she's
to stay
the
until-
Doctor. So you obviously have to cast her in a favorable light and indulge
Ooh.
some of her whims. But I'm sure that's just part and parcel of the industry. So yeah, are we signing? Are we doing this or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, great. I didn't have to twist your arm there. That's great.
No, not at
Okay.
all. Not at all. I can think of some great things that we can do with Doctor Who that doesn't devolve into weekly queerness and tears.
All right. So Z is selling her soul to work with Jodie Turner-Smith as the
Yes.
next Doctor Who.
Yes.
Brilliant.
I can make it
well,
work.
Mr. Shop, welcome to the Sony offices here. It's great. Again, we've been looking at your treatments for some new Sony properties and projects. I just have to say that we've been floored and flabbergasted by the quality of some of your ideas. So it's great. In particular, Miss Sydney Sweeney has shown an interest in
Hey,
all
how
your
come I
activities.
got Jodie Turner-Smith?
So she wants to have a lunch date with you to talk over the projects. And it's getting darker here in America, but in California it's summer all the time. So she's going to be not wearing many layers. She's going to be probably quite radiant there, and everyone's in the restaurant is going to be looking over to see you doing that. So lunch with Sydney Sweeney, but there's just one little caveat that we just have to sort of onboard you with Sony first, which means there'll be an induction day. We have to listen to people talk about their pronouns and their life experiences and their context of working in the industry as marginalized people. So a quick in and out, it'll be 8 hours tops of listening to these people's stories. So you get a sense of the culture, and then you can go have lunch with Miss Sweeney. So when you're out.
Okay, yeah. I've got no problem with that as long as they all sit there looking at me on the conference call or in the boardroom wearing a Dayglow green mankini the whole time. My aim is to wear less than Sydney Sweeney, so...
No, I'm afraid we'll have to take it seriously. Otherwise, you'll burn your bridges with the industry and be on the outer forever. So you will have to take part in some, scenarios and role play there where they they express, the microaggressions that they experience on a daily basis. So you get a sense, which would be good for you to understand. As I said, 8 hours tops. So we can assume you'll be there.
Yeah. I've got a pair of those Homer Simpson glasses that you can paint the eyes on. So I'm good with that.
All right, so Swappers gets a lunch date. All right, so Greg, can I just say here at HarperCollins that we see a lot of books come and go and manuscripts. So your 100,000 word epic that I understand you spent 10 years working on, we're good to go. We've got the cover illustrations prepared. This is going to be great. It's going to be huge and glossy. We're thinking national bookstore launch, huge savvy launch. It's going to be a huge budget behind this, marketing, all the rest. We're going to put all our company resources behind this to get your name out there. It's going to be great. And as I said, it's a fantastic book, huge franchise potential. So this could last for 10 years. We have just got back from our sensitivity reader who says that your main protagonist, we're thinking racially it's just not working for us or for her. So you may have to race swap your main character. So a few fixes, won't take much. It'll be like a week's top of re-edits, and then, as I say, full resources, and then, you know, this franchise potential. So I'll sit you down with the sensitivity reader, and you'll get back to us in a week. So obviously you're going to say yes.
There's a forward or a what do they call that in the industry, where you pay me up front a little bit?
Yep, there's a huge advance. Yep.
I will sell out so damn fast. Would you like the character to also be an amputee as well? Or, I mean, why should we stop at just the mixed race? What?
I'm not sure about amputee, but we're certainly open to being on the spectrum in some sense. So if you could throw that in as well, that would obviously
100. Yes, absolutely, I will. Do you want it subtle, or would you like it just
overt,
punching the reader in the face?
In the face, yeah. I want to see your knuckle indentations on the page. That's what I want. So
I'm going to sleep on a bed of money so well.
Wow, all three of you just sold your souls. I can't believe that.
Here's the thing. You know what? Well, A, yes, I absolutely would. But B, if it's taking money from the people who want to promote this kind of stuff, then that's great. That's like when I make I made the Acolyte video, and people were saying that they were getting Acolyte ads during it. I'm like, that's great. If Disney's going to pay me to mock their terrible product, then okay. Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Wow, I can't believe how guys just sold out straight away.
So
that's
fast.
Amazing. Didn't put up.
Yeah, we all have our price. It just turns out not to be that much.
Wow, unbelievable.
Right.
All right.
Right. You guys know I have a big family. That's
Speaking of which,
566 got it right.
So I thought this would be my most obscure video of all time, but it's gone gangbusters on the internet. It's like my top performing of recent times.
Yeah.
So the industry, 83% of marketing, 92% of publicity, and 78% of editorial staff in Britain's publishing industry are female. In 2021, 2022, 75% of new titles in the general and literary fiction category were by female authors, men consequently reading 20% of fiction. So Z, back in 1996, the Orange Prize was launched, Women's Literary Prize, because they were feeling marginalized at the lack of representation and being taken seriously in literature, and especially at the realm of prizes. The situation for men in terms of readership and prizes is now worse than it was for women when they felt compelled to bandy together to have their own literary prize due to feeling marginalized. And I think this is a terrible situation because a pendulum swing is not a course correction. A course correction is when everyone is essentially represented more or less evenly and proportionate to everyone's talent. Yes. And so it just kind of sucks at the moment because, again, it's the person in the street test. How many people in the street can name any authors who were in the zeitgeist? Most people wouldn't be able to name any. Whereas
they would get Sarah J. Maas or Colleen Hoover or something.
There was a time where people would talk about train spotting in pubs. You know, it was that much in the culture and in the zeitgeist. So, Z, what are your thoughts? Do you read much anymore?
Well, it's a cause and effect thing, you know. They take all of our literary awards, and we take all their sports medals and trophies and stuff. No, it's I don't know. It's where you become so accommodating to the minority that you actually phase out. They become the majority because everything's just pandering to their needs. And well, maybe it could be because men aren't writing any good books. I sincerely doubt that. I'm sure there are some absolute pearlers out there, but there is a mass market for softcore porn, which the ladies do tend to eat up quite substantially.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're just playing to their strengths. Maybe it is a women's market. But then you also find this in comics as well. A lot of the writers there are female. And we can all see how Disney and Marvel are doing at the moment. If you're aiming for one side of the audience, you're instantly going to alienate the other in my opinion, if you're way too heavy on one side. I have the same feeling towards celebrities when they endorse political candidates, because as I said in the Green Room earlier, as an outsider looking into the US, we think both candidates are idiots, and people throwing all of their weight behind them, you know, is just insanity when you can see both of them talking and none of them making any kind of sense. So it's
well, Swappers, do you have your nose in an improving volume at the moment, Swappers?
I don't know. I'm sort of writing one, but or rather editing one. It's it's post production. But I remember the 90s. Here we go again. 90s. When I was a lad, there was just, I remember going into W.H. Smith's and seeing just a massive glut of novels covering the shelves. Of all kinds of colors. I remember, because I'm not really much of a novel reader, because you have to cancel everything you're doing at that moment and sit down, read a book, do nothing else. Audiobooks are more my thing, where I can do like a million other things at the same time. So back then audiobooks weren't really a thing. So I felt encouraged to grab a few novels off the shelves, thinking like, this looks great. Oh my God, don't judge a book by its cover, I know. But the blurb on the back made it sound great. A few of my friends recommended a few, and I couldn't resist. And I genuinely, video games and comics and other things went by the wayside for a few weeks, and I was genuinely indulging in some really, really good novelizations from back then. And I noticed there were loads and loads of films being made from books as well in the following era. And like you mentioned Danny Boyle, but oh God, who's the guy that did with the film with John Cusack in High Fidelity? Loads of films like that were just all over all being born from novels from that era. And it seemed like Trainspotting kind of started something off, and people were running out to look clever on the tube and on the bus by reading the latest poem, and because of that, and it was part of the whole kind of movement, I think, of the cultural movement of the era, where we were getting a lot of low budget movies made, and there were people reading a lot more. Independent music was a very, very big thing. It was very vogue to look like you're an independent artist and be in a band with real music, with real instruments, and not being overproduced R&B singer, etc., or a rave outfit that just sounded like a car alarm going off, And it was kind of it was a thing of that time, and I don't really see that anymore. All I see now is books for wine mums, and it's a bit of a pain and depressing. Again, it's another one of those things that we seem to have lost. There was this vibrant energy about it at the time, where novelizations were seen to be aimed at vital people. Whether they were trying to influence people or not, I don't know, but they seemed like they knew there was a gap in the market, either emerging or people wanted to engage in that kind of media, that kind of entertainment, rather than maybe swamp themselves in video games. Whether they thought that people had had enough of one thing, and they thought, Trainspotting was such a great, iconic production. Maybe there's more out there. That was my introduction to it. Anyway, it's kind of like music. It's like a gateway. One band's a gateway, and you end up getting introduced to a load of others.
Yeah. So Niet, let's play devil's advocate here and consider the boys. If you're growing up with the flashing graphics and dopamine hits of video games, and social media with all its, lures, and let's be frank here and chuck it in the mix as well, a bit of Pornhub as well, then can you sit down with a volume of Dostoevsky? Probably not really.
I don't think they can. I feel like this young generation have the attention span of goldfish. That's why they're watching TikTok and all these shorts. They can't even watch a film, like a 1.5 hour film, without being distracted and whatnot. So I think that this younger generation are probably the most illiterate generation over the past in like 50, maybe 60 years. It's quite bizarre to see. So it is very worrying. In terms of new male writers, I don't see very many. I have a friend here who's a screenwriter. He's a Scotsman who immigrated to Australia, and in the 90s and 2000s, he was working on a lot of plays that he'd written. He was doing treatments for TV shows and films, and lo and behold, 2012, I reached out to him to see how he was going. It's like, I'm not needed anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, I can't find work. I was, working on 10, 15 projects per year, and I haven't worked in a year and a half. So it's quite sad to see. I'm in the process of publishing a novel at the end of this year, hopefully. So we'll see how we go. And so the spark is still there, and there's a lot of independent writers, but it's very difficult to work with a publishing agency that have specific requirements, mainly being female or belonging to a minority group.
It's a shame because I'm an author too, and my first consideration at the outset of a manuscript now is not what's something that intrinsically appeals to me. It's will female literary agents who are middle class and essentially liberal just consign this to the slush pile because it's not their cup of tea, and they don't think that it's going to be an author. So that's my first primary latent consideration when embarking on a manuscript, which is a terrible state to be in. So I also wonder at the school level, because in my video I showed all the different award winners in these competitions around the world. It's all LGBT content, it's all identity politics, it's all humorless. So I just don't think that boys feel at a half-conscious level that they can write about the things that actually at a visceral level appeal to them. The visceral, the grotesque, the sexually competitive, the hyper-aspirational, the lurid, and the dissident. I don't think that they can feel that they can actually write about the things that actually appeal to them. And I think that that's a big block.
I think that's definitely part of it. And also back to, you guys were talking about, the folks that are illiterate. I think it's very easy, and it's valid to say that part of it is the short form content that we're all consuming. But I don't know if you guys saw recently, there was an article in the Atlantic about the Ivy League students who can't read or something to that effect. It was like a big uproar. And in it blamed the school system, because it was talking about these college professors and the students coming in can't read. And again, these are Ivy League level colleges. And what they found was that in grade school and high school, they were not consuming whole books and then discussing the whole book. So it's not just those darn kids and their YouTubes and their TikToks. It's actually the way the schooling is structured, where the kids are reading excerpts, they're reading one chapter, they're reading just parts of a book, and then it's usually being explained to them, or the way that they're going about discussing literature is not the same as public school used to do. So it really is it's a change in the curriculum, where even at the school level, they are shrinking it down. They're not asking these kids to read whole novels. They're not telling them, we're going to read a classic. We're going to read Wuthering Heights. We're going to read Catcher in the Rye. We're going to read Grapes of Wrath. Like, we're going to read some of this classic American literature, and we're going to discuss the themes, and we're going to talk about the writing and the dialogue and all of that. Apparently that is not done anymore. And it doesn't see it at the college level now. So I don't want to let that escape and let this all just be the goddamn kids and their YouTubes. It's a systemic. Oh God, I use that. It's a problem.
The thing there is that for some of these kids, when they're in their penultimate or last year of high school, that might be the only time they read a novel from cover to cover. So even if at that level they're not even reading the full book, that's pretty dreadful. I read the fucking Merchant of Venice when I was in first year of high school. That's what our class did. I don't know if kids can even comprehend what Shakespeare language is. It must be beyond their capacity to comprehend.
We'd read a few of Shakespeare's plays in high school, like 8th, 9th grade, and we found it phenomenal. Like, it transformed our understanding of language. I was going to ask one question to Greg, since you're in America. Have you seen a rise of videos online where new teachers are going to teach like 7th, 8th grade, and they're finding that their students can't even keep up with 2nd or 3rd grade levels?
Yes, I see videos constantly. So I homeschool all my kids, and so I watch them and I laugh. But that's just like a Schadenfreude thing. But it's a massive wave right now. You're seeing a lot of videos of teachers in America who are quitting, they're burning out, and it's a multi-layered problem. It is what you just said, that they're trying to teach, and the students are not prepared for their grade level. and it's because either the previous curriculum was dumbed down or they were just pushed through, because a lot of the schools here, the funding is reliant on how many students pass, like federal guidelines. A lot of the schools get federal money. So they have to show the test scores at a certain level. They have to show the graduation rates are at a certain level. So oftentimes the kids will get shoved through whether they should or not, because the school needs that money from the government. The other issue is a lot of teachers are seeing behavioral problems, and they're not allowed to raise their voices to the kids. They're really not supposed to be sending them to the principal's office. There's not a lot of discipline. Like, there's a lot of issues there with their hands being tied as far as disciplinary issues. And of course, from their perspective, a lot of them are blaming the parents, like, oh, the parents aren't disciplining these kids and they're wild when they get to my class. And a lot of that is like a perspective. It's obviously what they're going to say as the teacher, because they're receiving these poor behaving children. So it's a multi-layered problem in school where you've got kids that aren't being told to focus. They're not being challenged. They're not being required to meet grade level work. And then those problems compound over time. So absolutely, you're seeing 7th, 8th grade teachers that are like, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. It's awful. And what's really terrible is in America, you need a 4-year degree, which the cost of college has skyrocketed. So I was going to be a teacher 20 years ago when I was in college. I wanted to be. I was going to school for it. And I saw what they were being paid. And I was going to be a science teacher. So I was going to make the most money. And I saw what they were paying in my area. And then I got a job offer to go work in an industrial plant. And they were like, we'll pay triple that right now. You just have to work shift work. And I was 21. So I was like, I'm never going to die. That's fine. And so I got out of it. I feel like I dodged a bullet, because it takes a massive amount of your time and money to even be qualified. And then your hands are tied. The school will not back you up. They don't provide the proper resources. And when your students aren't doing well, they say, too bad, write it off and push them on, because we need the money.
All right. Well, as we head towards the end, it's the bit towards the end where Echo weighs in with thoughts and opinions on. Yeah, he's in the chat with of American politics.
The bit toward the end where Echo weighs in with insight and analysis of U.S. politics.
All right, we're doing it. All right. So let's just figure out. No, we're not going to talk about preferences or anything like that. We're just discussing the situation, and likelihood and all that kind of stuff. So the ones in gray, as you know, are the swing states, the ones that are being contested. So Kamala Harris is leading in the popular vote nationwide, as Democrats have done 9 out of the last 10 times. But that's totally irrelevant, because all that matters is who wins these swing states to get to the magic number of 270. So what happened was, midway through the year, Donald Trump was leading in the polls. The chance of getting all the Sunbelt states like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina had disappeared, and the Biden campaign was just going to white knuckle it through the Rust Belt of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania there at the top. And then he dropped out. Harris came in, big swell of enthusiasm, and then the Sunbelt came back into play. So all those 4 lower states became pretty much even. But now we've kind of basically reverted to type, where those 4 are kind of seeming like they're slipping back away. And so we've come back all the way back to where we started, where it's just going to be basically white knuckling it through those top 3 Rust Belt states. A fascinating thing happened, Greg, because in order to win those 3, that would get Harris to 269, 1 short of the 270. And if you see right there in the middle of the country in Nebraska, NE, there's that tiny little blue square. They do theirs proportionally, which their electoral college votes, which means if someone wins that congressional district, then that goes to rather than winner take all. A huge push, Greg, 3 or 4 months ago, amongst all the Republicans in Nebraska to change those rules so that it would just be winner take all for the Republicans there, which means if that had happened, then that probably would have swung the election massively in favor of Trump. And there was this one guy who used to be a Democrat and then became a Republican in Nebraska. And he was the only guy in the legislature they needed to convince. They had everyone else lined up except for this one guy. And if they'd just twisted his arm, then he would have said, yep, okay, I'm in with that, and would have been winner takes all. So this election could be decided by this one totally random, obscure guy in Nebraska who decided that he was not going to do this thing in the most random, obscure state in the nation. So that's where it's at. And the other variable to be conscious of is in the polling, there's a ton of right partisan polling, all these things called Trafalgar Group and Patriot Polling and all these other groups. And so I think they might be skewing things a little bit. So that's another variable to look out for. But either way, 7 or 8 days. Can't believe just how quickly time has flown since the last election.
I'm interested to see how it turns out. I have a feeling that Trump is going to sweep it. I think that I was talking to my wife about this, and I know she heard it on a podcast, I think. So this is like a third repeating, but you had mentioned that the polls were very, very much for Trump in the summer, and then Biden dropped out. And I think that a very good explanation was explained as when Biden was not doing, I mean, it was very clear that he was not in a good mental state. I think there are a lot more people that like Trump than they will admit. And it's one of those things where it's kind of there's two sides to him. There's the personal side that's very easy to hate. I don't like the guy. I think he's just, I mean, as a person, I think he's crappy. Actually, I've got a whole bit. I'm going to lose a bunch of subs because I'm going to review the Bonhoeffer movie, and I already recorded that video, and I talk about Christian nationalism, and people are going to hate me for it. But but then there's another side to him, which is the policy stuff, and you'll see a lot of people that are like, look, my groceries were cheaper, gas was cheaper, we weren't in wars, and people will list off these policy things they like about him, but they feel like they can't say those things because then that means that they're going to be interpreted as liking him personally, and they won't do that. So I think what you saw in the summer were people feeling comfortable saying, you know what, I actually kind of I like the guy's policies. I think I'm going to vote for him. He's not that bad. He's not, come on. It's okay. Yeah, he says some terrible things and I don't like it, but he's all right. And they were saying that. And then when Kamala came in, you now have people that are they're terrified to say that they feel as though publicly they have to say, yes, I love Kamala. Absolutely. Yes, queen. Even though she was the first to drop out of the Democratic primary in 2020. You're seeing people saying that in the polls, and I think you're going to see a 2016 situation all over again where it was super tight. Hillary had it all locked up, and then Trump swept it because you're not allowed to be lukewarm on the man. Even you have to hate him. You have to say that publicly, or you will be skewered. So I think what you saw in early summer, that's what the real.
Yeah, I think that was a default. Yeah. Things tend to, but a couple of things since then, like interest rate cuts have come down, inflation cuts have come down a little bit since then. But you're right. When things are really tight and in a bunch of swing states, it does tend to drift one way or the other in the end. Like Barack Obama was really tight with Romney in 12, but then eventually everything swept to Obama, across all of those states. So there's that dynamic. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. But essentially that's it. So I think we've managed to shit on everyone in popular culture. I think we've done it. I think we've done it all. No stone left unturned.
Even coverage.
Yeah. So it just remains to. What else do I have? Yeah, that's the end of the slide. So it just remains to go around the horn and for everyone to tell us what they've got coming up. So, Mr. Greg Owen, what's new?
Next week, it's not going to be this week. It'll be next week. I've got a video on Arcane that is just about season 1 and how amazing it is, and just kind of a hype session for season 2, which is coming out next Friday. I think the first 3 episodes. It's going to be a 3-episode drop every week, and later in November, I'm finishing up all. It turned into 3 scripts. It was about Leslie Headland and what a piece of crap she is, and how she has no moral compass, and her show was a giant therapy session. I'm like 42,000 words in or something, so I'm making it 3 videos. So the first one will drop in the second week of November, and then I'll drop them a week apart, so I don't keep anybody waiting. So that'll be later in November. It's gonna be a big fun deal. They'll be about an hour and a half each, and we're gonna go into some detail about the twisted mind of Ms. Headland.
Man, it's amazing, the scripts, the length of these things now on YouTube. Like that's the length of The Great Gatsby that you've written for a video.
Yeah, well, the trouble is that you just you get into it and you want to be detailed, and you kind of you either go with a 10-minute because you're just kind of getting some opinions out, or you just decide, fuck, like once I get past 30 or 40 minutes, I'm like, fuck it. I just, why not leave, put every detail in at this point.
Well, come on, P-Pule for 5 British pounds. That's high quality currency right there. That's British sterling. Echo, were you a hero in the culture war? Echo said, no, but I served on a panel with heroes. Yeah. I think I'm a hero in the culture war. I hope so. I feel like I've been through some shit. Climbed a mountain. Thanks, DP. John Evans for $2 there. Sunday proves some libs don't know what fascism is. Well, I think he's referring to the that Madison Square Garden thing, because that was a lot. Film Comics Explained gifted 5 Echo Chamberlain memberships. I see what's going on there. Yeah. That's like a meta callback to my introduction. So thanks for that.
Happy anniversary.
Great. Well, yeah. So FCE, what can you tell the folks?
So I'm working on 2 videos at the moment. One covering Venom: The Last Dance, which I wasn't a big fan of, and another on the Terrifier film series. Also going to be on a couple of podcasts this week on Diabolical Souls, covering Star Wars, Uzumaki, covering From, and then my podcast this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, going over Predator, the first Predator film. It should be a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah. That will be good. All right. Swappers, what can you tell the folks?
Not being a full-time YouTuber myself, I shall be taking in the wonderful delights of the panel and their output, as well as probably popping up on Mr. Brown Alliance's channel with Z, no doubt, and doing a lot of drudgery like editing novels, which is always a joy. But apart from that, no, I'm not doing anything. But I will say, because I haven't said it yet, congratulations on the year of making these live streams. It feels like it was just yesterday when you began. So, man, that's flown.
Yeah. All right, cool. And Z. All right, what's going on with you?
You can find me on the Brown Alliance channels usually on Wednesdays and Sundays, talking about pop media. We're looking forward to Skeleton Crew coming in November, which no doubt will get us all the views that we need.
Yeah.
So feel free, pop along. Hello.
Go.
We're a lovely bunch of people.
Absolutely. All right, so that's pretty much it for today. People can go check out my my book on literature and the gender disparity if they want. And yeah, so that's about it. So it just remains for me to say kakitiano and hairera to everyone wherever you are in the world. So bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.